Hey guys, welcome to BP, the Bible Perspective, as we deconstruct the case for Trump as the right choice. Now, before we continue, please like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comments section below. All comments are welcome. I came across a video that I began doing this series on. I'm kind of rebranding it for this current title. And that is the case for making Trump as the right choice. Now, the video was put out by Apostle Alton Williams. And since he goes by the title Apostle, I'm going to use that. I'm not going to get into the issue of his title as an apostle, but for the sake of this video, since he calls himself an apostle, I'll go with that. And this is a Sunday night service. By the way, he's pastor of World Overcomers Church in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm not for sure if he is affiliated with World Overcomers Church out of Atlanta, Georgia, pastored by Creflo Dollar. I don't know if there's a connection. He does seem to be a charismatic / Pentecostal minister. But what, of course, caught my attention was his defense of Donald Trump and of the Republican Party. So what's interesting is that this, I think, is a Sunday night service, and he seems to have a pretty nice sized church. And as YouTube, he has a huge following. And I'm going to say the following probably is in the case of, in defense of the Republican / conservative platform. Now, Trump, and what's puzzling, of course, for people who are men of the word, that if you're going to put your hat, in the political arena, what my expectations, and I say this in a rhetorically, is I expect for them to be truthful, so that wouldn't you call out all sins instead of some sins? Or would you condemn certain sins and justify others? In other words, if you're going to condemn the Democratic Party, but then ignore all the sins of the Republican Party, as James says, you're sinning and you're not upholding the truth. And that is what Christians who support and defend Trump, that's what they do. And you're going to see that in this video. I'm going to deconstruct this, so I'm going to be breaking this video down. This is over an hour long, about an hour and 20 minutes long. I don't know if I'm going to cover all of the video, but I'm going to certainly cover some of the most important issues that he brings up and show you, like I do with other videos, how that in his case, the misinformation, the twisting, and even twisting of scripture in order to build up his platform. And again, he's feeding his flock. So my question is that when you say you are an apostle, one, who sent you? Where are you sent? In other words, what is God's purpose, mission for the apostle? And are you carrying out this mission with this platform? Now, let me just say this. And Christians, if you are truly holding to the word of God, I'm going to ask, how could you be a Democrat or a Republican? And I'm not getting into whether or not we should vote or not. I get why we should vote and why we have the opportunity to express our freedom under the Constitution. Keep this in mind, not all the world has that. And for that reason, that's why the gospel message cannot be singularly applied only to America. More on that later. But whether you are a Republican or a Democrat, it is really just different sides to the same evil coin. Democrats and Republicans Democrats and progressive have long forsaken God in favor of humanism. It is the Republicans who claim to be the party of God, the party of Christianity, the party of morality. And you find that they're hypocrites. And so my question is, well, so what is he defending? And whose kingdom are you building? Whose flock are you feeding? So let me share my screen and bring up the video. Now, let me just go back and show you his title, because he's not going to mention Trump's name too much. And one of the reasons why is because you have to be careful about how he defends Trump, because he can get into trouble with the law. But notice the title, Why Trump? And of course, his World Overcomers Church, Memphis, Tennessee, 63,000 views. So he had a huge following, 51.7 thousand subscribers. So he has a huge following. He is very popular. One of the reasons why he's had the huge following, look at the kind of platform that he then promotes. That's not to say other people can't have huge platforms. But certainly, when you're talking about you're going to defend Trump, you're going to attract a certain demographics. Okay, but anyway, let's start. Let's listen to him. Hear what he has to say.
I hope you saw the end of last week's broadcast. I had a video from a lady named Donna Jackson, African American woman. If you go tonight and look.
Now let me stop. This Donna Jackson seems to be one of his primary sources. In other words, what he's getting ready to say is based upon her. Now I don't know who she is. I don't know who she is. But this seems to be one of his primary sources. And again, notice that he showed this video in the church, right? In the church. Now, let me just show you something, because I'm going to be going back and forth with scripture here. Let me one of the issues that I am taking issue with, one of the things that I'm taking issue with here is, I want to show you something kind of as what we are. Let's take a look at, what do I want? I think I want Matthew chapter 4. And look at verse. This is Matthew chapter 4, and it says, and as he, referring to Jesus, was walking along the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, who was called Peter, and his brother Andrew. They were casting their nets into the sea, since they were fishermen. Now, the reason why I'm using this is because, remember, he says he's an apostle. And when you have that kind of title, then shouldn't your apostleship be in continuity with all the apostles that Jesus chooses and sends out? And by the way, the word apostle meant a sent one. In other words, one who was called and then he is sent out. So now he says, verse 19, follow me, he told them, and I will make you fish for people. I want you to keep that in mind. Fish for people. Now, let's look at one more. Verse here. And this is Jesus after the resurrection. He's confronting Peter, right? He just told Peter, remember we just read, so from this standpoint, 3.5 years previous, he said, I'm going to make you fish for men. And now he is going to kind of reiterate that with Peter. Verse 15 says, and when they had eaten breakfast, Jesus asked Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Yes, Lord, he said, you know that I love you. Feed my lambs, he told them. Second time he asked him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Yes, Lord, he said, you know that I love you. Shepherd my sheep. He asked him a third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was grieved that he asked him a third time, do you love me? And he said, Lord, you know everything, you know that I love you. Feed my sheep. By the way, I'm using the Holman Christian Standard Translation. Now, the reason why I shared these two scriptures from the beginning, because here is a pastor of a church, and now with a very large YouTube following, okay? A large YouTube following, in which he says, now are you feeding the flock? Are you fishing for people? And the rhetoric that we're going to hear from him, let's examine and see if this is what is going on here. And by the way, as I told you before, I do welcome all comments because I know that people are going to say to me, how dare you talk about this apostle? How dare you criticize him? Touch not God's anointing. I tell you what, bring the scriptures on in your comment. Your comments are welcome. What's even worse is that his primary source that seems to come from Donna Jackson, I don't know who she is. You're going to hear him even say that I don't know if this is true. I'm just repeating what she says, which is astounding to me. That if you haven't validated what she says, then why are you repeating it? Why haven't you checked out the claims? Besides the fact that this is what you're feeding the flock on a Sunday night service. Here we go.
Above or below our screen, whether it's Facebook or YouTube or our own channel, they ought to have the listings of those references that I gave last week, same ones we do it tonight, so you can go and read and check those things out. But this latest video is on there also, if you missed it. You got to see it because she's really telling you what is going on and what's happening with, it's getting ready to affect everybody, the whole nation.
Now, he did mention references in the previous video, so I'll acknowledge that. I don't know what reference he's referring to. I can only assume. And of course, what our challenge is that since you're putting this out on YouTube, um, it probably would have been best for you to again list those references. Now he did say they're in the comments, so I'll take that I'll take that and say I stand corrected. All right, here we go.
There are small towns, other larger cities like Chicago, where the immigration problem has become a crisis. And what is really happening, and I'm saying this to many African American citizens who do not understand the politics or what is going on governmentally. But the lady outlined it last week, how people are coming over here, breaking the law by crossing the border illegally. And just for coming over, they are being rewarded with all kind of benefits. She mentioned it last week that many of the migrants are living in high-class hotels in New York or in Chicago, and then they are getting $4,000 to $5,000 worth of different benefits just for being here.
So let's talk about that. Again, misinformation right here. One, he says that immigrants are coming across the border. Let me kind of go back so you can hear what he says here.
She's really telling you what is going on and what's happening with, it's getting ready to affect everybody, the whole nation. There are small towns, other larger cities like Chicago, where the immigration problem has become a crisis.
So let me go point by point here. He says the immigration has become a crisis. However, what he's not telling you is why are they a crisis in Chicago, in New York, in other, you could say, sanctuary cities. Because what he's not telling you is that it was the Republican governors that transported these, as he may call them, illegal migrants into these cities. And should that be a crime if they're illegal? You had the governor of Florida who transported migrants from Texas. Now, this is a Florida governor, right? Used taxpayer dollars to transport migrants from Texas to the Hamptons. You've had the governor of Texas with taxpayer dollars flood the cities with migrants. Now, here's the question. Were these illegal migrants that these governors sent migrants all over the city? Now, yes, the sanctuary cities got, I shouldn't say got what they deserve, but you the one that said that you were sanctuary cities. So, okay. But here's my point. When you remember, it was the Republicans that flooded these cities with immigrants. And so if he's calling them illegal, isn't that a crime?
What is really happening, and I'm saying this to many African American citizens who do not understand the politics or what is going on governmentally. But the lady outlined it last week, how people are coming over here, breaking the law by crossing the border illegally. And just for coming over, they are being rewarded with all kind of benefits. She mentioned it last week that many of them.
Now let's just stop before he goes on here. He just said that illegal migrants are illegally crossing the border, and just for doing that, they are rewarded. Now he's getting ready to tell you what they are rewarded for. That is, again, misinformation. It is really just a flat out lie, because illegal migrants are not eligible to receive government assistance. So whatever, he's getting ready to list what they are, but they certainly cannot receive that illegally. And then again, remember what are the primary sources for these migrants flooding the country? Texas and Florida. Paying for these migrants flying either by plane and by buses. And they were the ones. So you're saying that Texas governor should be held accountable for what? Transporting. Now, if people do that, and there are people who, excuse me, transport illegal migrants into the country, isn't that a crime? And so if they come to the Texas border, he then puts them on and then floods these sanctuary cities. Isn't that a crime? And shouldn't you, as a man of God, be crying out and sparing out for all sin?
Migrants are living in high-class hotels in New York or in Chicago, and then they are getting $4,000 to $5,000 worth of different benefits. Just
So again, misinformation. As I said, first and foremost, illegal immigrants cannot receive government assistance. So if immigrants are receiving assistance, that means they are here legally. Now you can debate the whole what they're getting, and the fact that he's saying that they're getting 4 to 5,000. Where is the source that they're getting that much? Okay, but let's just say even if they are, it still would be something that wouldn't be illegal. Secondly, he says that they are being put up in high class hotels, right? So let's ask the question: are you saying that, for example, the Ritz Carlton or the Hyatt Hotel or the Hilton, or the Intercontinental Hotel, are you saying that these immigrants are showing up at the doorstop and the bellmen are coming out and bringing their bags in and they're checking in at the check-in desk and then escorted to these luxury rooms with all the amenities that these hotels provide? See, that's misinformation. So here's what's going on. With one, you have hotels that pretty much are vacant, not in use, either closed, either in financial trouble. So these are the buildings that are being used for housing, again, the immigrants. Now, again, as I said, you could certainly make the argument, and he's getting ready to bring up the contrast with how the homeless and the those that are suffering disparities in these same cities are being treated. And I think it's valid. But again, illegals are not, and again, cite the source where it shows that illegals are receiving 4,000 a month and living high on the hog. Is just again misinformation.
for being here. They are getting first place for jobs now. Many low service jobs, as I mentioned to you before, that would have gone to many African American people, they are being replaced now.
Again, he's saying they're being replaced. Where is this at? Black unemployment is at its lowest in decades. So where are you getting this information from? Where is it that you're saying that immigrants are coming into these places of employment and then they are being replaced by immigrants? In other words, here's your pink slip, here's your separation packages, black people, right? And it's only black people. It's just black people, not white people, not anyone else, not Spanish Americans, Mexican Americans, or is it just black people that's being handed separation packages and then they're hiring, you know, the illegal uh, immigrants, which again would be illegal for, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen. Like I say, we know it happens, but it's illegal, right? Factories sometimes will hire illegal migrants, and when somebody gets mad at them and they call immigration, then you see them scatter. But that's illegal. Now he's saying that the government is participating in this. Where's your source? Where's your information?
Where you're making 14, 15 an hour, migrants are coming in happy to get $10 an hour, which means the bosses are going to go to whoever they can pay the lower wages to. So that means it is impacting the black community. What is going on, as I've told you before.
You're saying impacting the black community. What factories? Because at that rate, this is what you're talking about. That factory jobs are being taken. Now, again, despite the fact that black unemployment is at its lowest in decades, right? So, what factories are doing this? What factories are displacing black people in favor of illegal migrants?
Is African Americans are being displaced. I
But here's again, displaced to where? right? Displaced to where?
I said it one Sunday, and I'm going to say it again. The left, and most of you all know what I mean when I say the left politically, there's the left or the right, is displacing African Americans because they are bringing in another host of people that they need politically. And they are putting them in black communities, which is getting ready to start, as I mentioned last week, a race war between black.
I'm going to go back. I'm going to play this again here. Let's start it about here.
Is African Americans are being displaced. I said it one Sunday, and I'm going to say it again. The left, and most of you all know what I mean when I say the left politically, there's the left or the right, is displacing African Americans because they are bringing in another host of people that they need politically. And they are putting them in black communities, which is getting ready to start, as I mentioned last week, a race war between blacks who've been in those communities and the brown or migrants, Hispanics or whatever, that are coming in. They are even raising up gang.
Let me stop because let's kind of address this. So they're bringing in, are they illegals? Because remember, they're living in high-class hotels. Now you're saying they're being put into black neighborhoods. And it is only black neighborhoods? So again, where is their source? And then where are these black people being displaced out of their crime-ridden neighborhoods? Let's let that sink in for a moment, right? For the pastor here to me, let me read a couple of scriptures here. Because the kind of attitudes about the immigrants coming from this apostle, okay? So I'm going to read Leviticus, Leviticus 19. I'm going to read 33 and 34. And then I'm going to go to, oh, it's actually right here. Okay. So I want to read two. Okay, here we go. All right, so Leviticus 19, and then 33 says, when a foreigner lives with you in your land, you must not oppress him. You must regard the foreigner who lives with you as the native born among you. You are to love him as yourself, for you were foreigners in the land of Egypt. I am Yahweh, your God. Now, Deuteronomy chapter 10, and let's look at verse 19. And he says here, you also must love the foreigner, since you were foreigners in the land of Egypt. Okay. Now, so I am disturbed by again by the rhetoric. That does it produce you loving as God told us how we ought to see foreigners? Is this what the message is that's producing? Is it producing love? Okay. And by the way, so we're clear, when he's calling them illegal migrants, so the thousands of migrants that's coming here, in other words, if you're demonizing them, saying that they're all illegal, not people who are fleeing horrendous living conditions in their country to come to the hope of promise that America boasts in. Now, of course, it was to the European, okay? Never was necessarily meant for the southern border, but I digress. But just remember what God said right here. All right.
Communities and the brown or migrants, Hispanics or whatever that are coming in. They are even raising up gang members to come in and giving them weapons to take over those communities. And
So who's giving them weapons? You made a claim. Who's giving them weapons? And then when you say, by the way, again, these neighborhoods that have already been crime ridden. So it's not like they're disrupting anything. But our question again is, who's giving them the weapons? The very cities he is in, Memphis, is one of the highest crime rate cities in America, which kind of surprised me because, I know Memphis very well. And over the years to see how it went down, and you can't blame the immigrants for that. So my point is, what's his point? I understand with the right and the Republicans and the so-called conservatives, I know why they do it. I'm just trying to understand why this man of God, this apostle, is doing it.
a lot of black citizens are upset and are worried that they are getting ready to lose their businesses, possibly even their homes, and that they are being displaced.
Now let me stop here and say this. So that's kind of a partial presenting here. That African Americans in these communities are upset by the treatment of immigrants and how they, who have been advocating for the same help, have been ignored by the city. I do believe that's a fair and valid point. But you also have to remember that, like in Chicago, like in New York, these immigrants were dumped. Now, how the city handles them, again, fair and balanced point. So I believe that any advocate could certainly make the case of, hey, if y'all going to treat immigrants this way, and we have hurting people here, throw us some money too. I would also say this, however, that you have to be fair and balanced and examine. Let's talk about how we would help those in these communities that have lived in these communities. What is the fair and balanced way to treat them? Now, I'm going to pick this up in part 2 and continue, because again, I'm going to really take my time and deconstruct this argument, which I find very interesting. So don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. And I will see you in part 2.